Hey guys, what's going on? It's time to talk about the new album from Scottish alternative rock band Twin Atlantic. Now, I've been a fan of this band for a couple of years now. I got into their last two albums, Free and The Great Divide, quite a bit. So I was intrigued by this new album over here, titled GLA. Now, GLA, I guess, is a reference to Glasgow, the origin city of the band, if you will. And there's sort of an idea throughout this album-ish, throughout the advertising around it, that it's come with the Glasgow attitude and the whole Scottish attitude. So we're going to be getting into, is that in full-fledged here? Is it around? Does it sound good? Is this a good album? Time for the review. Now, this album sets a tone, really, with the first track titled Gold Elephant Cherry Alligator. Not too sure what that means in terms of the title, but essentially what it's doing is setting the tone for a new sort of style of Twin Atlantic album. Previously, with the last two albums, we've seen sort of pop merging on alternative rock, collections of songs, usually strong, obviously, hence why I like the band. But over here we've got a crunchier sound. We've got a more raw sound coming from the band, and it is hard hitting. This first track, it builds with these sort of gradual, consistent, crunchy guitars over Sam McTrusty, the lead vocalist, distorted sort of radio type vocals. This is probably the crunchiest, most raw song, I'm trying to think of words to describe it really, that you'll hear on this whole album. Now, previously we've heard occasional tracks like this pop into different Twin Atlantic albums, probably most likely Free. But a lot of the time, I've found it to settle in not quite as well as it does on this record, because usually they'll have a bunch of pop songs, pop rock songs, really, and they'll be really enjoyable, really good choruses. That's why I love this band, the energy that they put into their music. And usually some of the crunchier songs don't really fit in. They don't feel like they've been put in there for much of a reason. They feel like they're just in there as a token to say, we're not a pop rock band, guys, we're more of a hard Scottish weathered rock band. And what I was expecting from hearing the marketing around this album was that it would be taking all those filler sort of tracks from the previous albums and throwing them into one. That is certainly not the case. That's apparent right from the start. Gold Elephant Cherry Alligator, not too sure what he's on about. He's growling about alligator. It sounds cool in a Scottish accent, but he sounds up for it and he sounds ready for a brand new album. And really on this track, all it's meant to do is sort of get you into the music and sort of get you into the energy that the band has later to come. Now, it's followed by the lead single, No Sleep. It's sort of, this is what this album does really well, right? So it's sort of it's in between this crunchiness of Gold Elephant Cherry Alligator. You've still got the distortion on the guitars coming through, clear and just full of energy and getting you into it. But you've also got this sort of funky melody that you wouldn't really hear on a Twin Atlantic album. You've got a funky guitar line going through, sort of coming in at the start of this track and taking it through. And then this huge chorus, which we've heard from Twin Atlantic before, but in this case they remind us why they've been, one of the most consistent breakout chorus bands of the past few years. Their album Great Divide, songs like Brothers and Sisters, Heart and Soul, yes, great choruses, but have they got the rawness? It felt a bit like they were holding back a bit on those tracks, whereas here on songs like No Sleep, Overthinking's a good one for this as well, and I Am Alive, all of these songs have cracking choruses. Now, if you're thinking that this is going to be full of more conventional songs like the previous one, you've got a bit of leeway either side with that. We've got the fifth track on this album, XL. This is about a 5.5 minute long track, essentially with a festival ready chorus to it, despite the sort of downbeat vibe that it goes for, and the crunchy guitars there are in full-fledged, and it's really an enjoyable track to hear. Those 5.5 minutes, they don't feel like they've been stretched out with filler like maybe they will have done on previous Twin Atlantic records. The length feels perfectly justified, just because of a lot of these songs, and what I'd like to comment on sort of generally, a lot of these songs feel like they should be sung at a festival to a wide audience, and there's a lot of bands there with undeserved headline slots. I feel like this fourth album here, it's gonna break out Twin Atlantic into a more band you'd be likely to see on the main stage at one of the UK's rock festivals. People really getting into some of these tracks over here. You Are the Devil, Overthinking. You can just imagine people shouting the lyrics. And I have actually been lucky enough to see this band live. I saw them live in 2014 at Leeds Festival, and everyone was up for it then. But compared with this new album over here, I think there's going to be a lot more sort of energy from the crowd coming back to the band, and sort of that interaction will be on a different level from some of these songs. Towards the back end of this album, we're hit with a bit of a curveball, which is great because it makes the album sort of a bit more enjoyable, a bit more balanced, despite they've got this recurring theme with the guitars and with the sort of flow of the album going on throughout. But to break it up a bit, they've got this track, A Scar to Hide. This is an acoustic ballad. They're not entirely new to this. We've seen acoustic versions of Heart and Soul in the past, but this is on a new level in terms of Twin Atlantic's more sort of intimate, personal tracks. None of this lyrical content is going to blow you away. Maybe in the context of the album it will, but none of it is, it's not. He's not a folk singer, right? So he's not going to play about with words insanely, but essentially what we've got from here from Rick Trusty is a sort of moment of desperation captured within this song. He's calling out to his girlfriend just to leave him alone. He's in such a state, he's so bad at everything that he just wants her to leave him. So in the ways he calls her out, he tells her to just leave him because it'll be better for both of them. It's pretty good lyrically, and the sort of desperation that comes from his voice. It's time and time again as a vocalist, he's been able to show us that energy both positively and negatively. However, one of the criticism we've had of Twin Atlantic sort of throughout some of their albums, it's felt a little bit cheesy. For an alternative rock band, they do pretty well for the most part. It sounds good, but essentially in some of the tracks, maybe touch on it a bit in Brothers and Sisters from the past album, maybe the moments on albums like Free, where he talks about rock and roll being not all it's cut out to be. Yeah, we've heard it a million times for the last 40 years. And as much as I'd like it not to be, there's a tidge, what the fuck is a tidge? There's a little bit of cheese. It pops up a little bit. I would like to point out the track The Chaser to be one that I would probably have dropped and just made an 11-song release, to be honest. It has sort of these clapping hands building up right at the start. Why? I don't know. It's just these repeating clapping hands. I think at one point that you can hear a crowd sound effect after one of the drops. It's got this sort of forced groovy beat thing to it. It's this raising fists to this sort of song, and I don't feel like that's what this album is for. It's more of an emotional prevail over the idea that we all should just pretend to not care. This guy is clearly pissed off. He's clearly loving being a dick in some of these tracks. I Am Alive or No Sleep. He's clearly loving not caring, and I think maybe The Chaser, I think it defies that a bit. I don't really feel like that's this album's purpose. I feel like it's more of a looking into yourself, asking what the fuck do I want, right? And I feel like that's kind of what this band does on the rest of the album. They look at, what can I have fun with here, and whether it's a huge chorus like No Sleep, or just messing about on You Are the Devil with the funky guitar riffs. I feel like it's about sort of personal, emotional defiance and triumph, just over anything that might bring you down, and just giving it a big fucking go. And in comparison, I feel like the Chaser follows too many cheesy conventions. It's a bit more about external defiance rather than what the fuck do I want to do. And I just feel like it doesn't fit on this album. I'm not a fan. But I'm glad that cuts like this only make it into the album once. Whether it would make it more of a, I don't know, more of a sort of, not serious, but to be respected album without this track, probably so. but that's just the way it goes. But songs like Whispers, they sort of bring that sort of serious tone back. It's one of the darker songs on the album. He talks sort of, the lead singer talks about defiance in sort of a dark, deathly way. And it's a lot more enjoyable when they're taking things a bit more seriously, but having a lot of fun and putting some emotion into it. Whereas on this track, The Chaser, it's all sort of a bit cliche. But I am delighted to say the album rounds off brilliantly with this track. Must hear it, Mother Tongue. Now this is it's sort of like, it's weird. It's like a distorted guitar led track. There's no real, I don't think there's percussion in this track. And it's probably my favorite song on the album. I feel like this is them fulfilling exactly what they want to do. This is them making a song that they think is going to be good, and that translates directly into the music. McTrusty's vocals and lyrics on this song are they're some of the best on the album. It fits well with the guitar led, no drums, no sort of cliched building drums to an explosive chorus or anything. This is as raw as this album gets. So I'd just like to summarize by saying it's an alternative rock album. It's, you're not going to get many tracks that are going to absolutely blow you away on first listen or on any listen by the looks of things. None of them you're going to listen to and think, you know what, I should have been thinking differently about this walk of life, or I should have considered this political opinion. There's not going to be much of that coming up on this album. However, this is an emotion-led album. This is a defiance-led album, and it's really good at it. The choruses on this album, there's no reason to criticize this band for putting in the effort they have into creating some great rock songs. This is a band saying we're a band that are making cracking songs and we're here to stay. There's no messing about here. There's no scenes. There's no compliance for the most part with anything that anyone wants them to do. There's no sort of, oh, this is a chill song excuse for a boring song. This is a straight up 12 songs of just pure enjoyment from the band. That's all I could really want from Twin Atlantic. That's all I've enjoyed from them in the past, and this is what I'm enjoying on this record over here. Gonna give this album a 7.5 out of 10. If you're looking for a great angry but really glad to be angry album, this I definitely recommend giving this album a play. So that's all from me. Let me know if you agree with this album, what your opinion is. Obviously, it's all down to you. You might find this album to be, like a bunch of albums you've heard before, and that's fine. Discuss it in the comments if you will. Let me know if this review's been helpful, what I could talk about more, what I could talk about less, whether you got a good vibe of the album from this review after listening to it. That's been Cammy Chad. This is my first album review, and I'm just going to peace out, guys.